Welcome back, Generals, to another Let's Fix Generals 0 Hour to make the best game ever. Good, so let's go to the GitHub. Yeah. Okay, so we got a comment on here. Okay, so let's see. Get instance name kind of implies an instance specific name. Maybe get game GUID or something. Instance specific name. Right. Yeah, true. Let me see. Yeah, get instance name. Get. Where's this used? Find window. Yeah. How about we call it get first instance name then? Yeah. Yeah. Returns the instance name of the first game client. Returns the instance ID of this game client. Returns the instance name of the first game client. Returns the instance name of the first game client. Yeah. Okay. So we rename this one. Get first instance name. Okay. Renamed to get first instance name. Can we put the instance string in front? Otherwise, I cannot see the instance name in the taskbar, and it's common practice to put the identifying stuff in front. Okay. Okay, I see. Okay. Fetch. wprintf wprintf byte character string, single byte character string, h. I think it will be enough to do instance. Okay, how about we do it short inst? Inst. Inst. Maybe there's a shorter name. Instead of instance, we just say ID, version. Let me say a shorter name for instance. Another word for instance. Let's search for instance synonym. Example, illustration, case, sample, specimen, prototype, sampling. How about we just say ID? ID stands for identification, right? Instance ID. ID. Yeah, I don't know. ID. Yeah, we could do it like this, and then we do here our name. %s. inst. Our name dot str, and then our name equals that. We do ss. Instance. Maybe here we also say inst then. Inst. We say ID, and then here we would also say ID. Maybe we use lowercase ID, then it's easier to see the number. ID. Maybe maybe we also use minus ID like this. Maybe that makes it a bit easier to read. ID. We can't use colon. We could use equal. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Fixed. Note that these defines are duplicate in recorder. What? Oh. The hell? Okay, that's weird. Why is this duplicated here? What? What the fuck is this? Clean up replay file. What? Huh? Clean up replay file. What is this bullshit? It's wild. Clean up replay file. How about we may, okay, so if the log file is also used here, then to me that sounds like we should have a function here, build log file name, which uses the instance ID. Yeah. Debug file name. Okay. Let's see. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay, yeah, so the get module file name, the mm-hmm. 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 Oh boy. It doesn't use name pref. It only uses this one. For whatever reason. Okay, how about we go to debug. We create debug extern. Debug crash. Okay, how about we create new functions here? Debug. 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 No. The above. Debug file name previous. Okay, so str copy. Depths. Str copy. Strl copy. String X. If def C++. I wonder. Yeah. we perhaps bring some of the relevant some of the relevant base config stuff from Thyme to EA code. For example, I'm eyeballing strl copy would be very nice to have. No. Okay. Good. So I think we need to move this into two functions. Yeah. Yeah. Base stats dir. Okay, before we go on here, let me see if that compiles. And then I would also like to test if that compiles. We see. with VS6. Okay, then let's set this to 1, and let's see if it compiles. Debuff. G-app prefix. Let's see. Yeah, so the problem I'm seeing right now is that this is not an exact replica of what the debug does, right? It uses this file name, but it doesn't use a prefix. It doesn't use executable paths. So this works with the work dir, no prefix, nothing. It's weird. It's weird, yeah. What is that for? Log file size was this, and then what? The F name. So it would save the log file next to the replay. The way I see this here. Right? Where's this called? Stop recording. Let's put a breakpoint in here. Yeah. And let's run this code. Actually, before we run it, yeah, let's wait for the compilation here to finish first. Yeah. Save stats. So that would need to be set to true. Okay, let's first wait for this compilation. Okay, so that has succeeded. So we can at least answer this question here. Yes, it compiles. STL port does have std string. Okay, so here, I think we need a separate change where we clean up this mess. Good, so how about we do the following? We stage this. this. Not this. Yes. Replay file name. Can't we just say how about we say else replay, hold on, last replay file name 00, okay. We'll move this here. There we go. Let's use the underscore classic. Okay. Take this. Recorder. Okay, address, review comments. Okay, then we stash that. Then we change to main branch. Okay, we pull that, delete, delete, delete. Okay, then we run this. Okay. Okay, then we go to recorder. Yeah. Good. Let's try to untangle this mess here. So we go up here. First thing we do, we force this one to true. Here. True. Okay. That means we should hit this guy on debug. Yeah. Good. Let's see what this does. This code is fine. It's already tested and works as advertised. It's no harm to the user, even if you forget about it and remains. Nothing about fixing stuff until we figure out a way to fix and sync data files. I'm not sure what he's on about. GitHub. The code is fine. It's already tested and works advertised. It's no harm to the user, even you forget about it. But it's not the problem. So let's look at this change. Let's look at this change. So what he did here, he says, yeah. So the way this works in data, it sets a fixed limit for the list size of the replay menu. Right, 100, and then here it says if the list size is exhausted, it will go ahead and simply resize this list and grow it, keep growing it, doubling it every time, right? So it will disregard the upper bound limit from the data. Right, and this is labeled as bug fix. The simpler fix, well, the simpler tweak would be to go in the data, change the 100 to 500, and then have 500 slots for replays. Right. The problem I have with this is that it overrides the expectation that we give it from data, right? So the data expectation is that you set the limit to 100, but here the code just magically does its own thing then on top of it, which seems weird. Like it's basically we create a state where things don't work as expected, right? So let me dig up the data place here. Game page, let's go with, can we find it in here? Window, yeah. So it's menus and LAN lobby menu, LAN. LAN P, LAN main menu. Replay menu should be right. Replay here, replay menu. There we go. Okay, and so we're looking at some list box, right? Is it called list box? Yeah. List box replay files. There we go. And there we have, what do we have? Here, list box data length 100. Copy permalink. Data Data needs to be fixed. Data needs to be fixed. Let's say data needs to be fixed in our data branch. Our data branch, which is here. The list box data needs to be fixed in our data branch, which is here. The list box length is set here. Yeah. Hacking the code to overwrite the data setup is not an elegant solution. The code either data is explicitly bending the code in ways so that things just work is not. I don't know how I can explain this. The thing is, like, the thing is, of course, you can hack the code to make everything work in the code, right? You can totally override the way that the data is set up, right? So, for example, you can say, okay, this ini file, I don't like how it's set up, so I just hard code the stuff in code, right? So let's say, let's open here some file, yeah, like this one. So for example, you could say, I don't like the way that the volumes are set up. The volumes are too low or too high, right? And then you say in code, okay, I just hard code the volume to, I don't know, 80, 70, whatever, right? So you make it quieter. And this will work. Yeah, it will work. The code runs. It will disregard the setup here from the ini file, right? And things will just work, right? But that doesn't mean that's a good solution, because now you break the contract with the ini file, right? So the ini file doesn't tell, like, it you cannot set it up correctly anymore through the ini file. And I don't think that's a route we should take. We shouldn't hack the code in ways that it alters the behavior that the original game assumed with the ini setup that was given. Instead, we need to say, we allow you to do these tweaks and changes, and then you can, like, change the behavior. So so in regards of the replay this box, it says so by default it's 100 because that's how it's set up in the ini file. If you want this larger, you can set it to a larger number, like 1000 maybe. Yeah. Or we provide a new mode where you can set it to some number that indicates that the code takes priority. Maybe what we could do is we can omit this length, for example, or we can set it to 0 or to -1, right? And then the code can take care of this. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I disagree with overriding any settings by code. Any settings need to mean something. Length 100 says that the max length is 100. This should not be violated by code. The proper solution here is to or let's say options to fix a list length, to change list length. 1, increase number length number in WND file. 2, increase set length, well, let's say remove length, or let's say set length number to 0, or yeah, what happens if it's set to, let me see, what happens if we set it to 0? That's a good idea. Let's test what happens. So we have projects here. Let's go to patch scripts. Okay, so good. So blah blah blah, full English, blah blah, execute build. Okay. Then let's run this. Yeah. This cannot be fixed in data simply because the list length is only known at runtime. There is no length value we could set in the data that would accommodate all runtime situations. I don't know why there's this overlay here. That's stupid. Probably need to disable that. Okay, so let me increase here the size. So load load replay. Okay, so we have here our replay list. We have 5 guys inside. Good. Next, let's go to this file here. Let's open replay menu WD here. Let's find length. There we go. So that is scroll list box, and we set it to 0. What happens? 0. Execute. Oops. Load replay. Okay, and now it's empty, right? Yeah. Let me take a screenshot of that. There we go. So we can set it to 0. Yeah. I disagree with overriding any settings by code. Arbitrarily. Any settings need to mean something. Length 100 says that the max length is 100. This should not be violated by code. Options to change list length. Increase length number in WND file. For example, list box length 0. Uh, 1000. Set length number to 0. And then allow code to choose to allocate its own limit. What happens if we set it to -1? Minus length -1. I wouldn't be wondering if it would crash the game. Loads. Yep, it crashes again. Okay, cool. Of course it does. Next number in WND file to 0, and then allow code to allocate its own limit. I tested setting it to 0, and that works. Setting it to -1 will crash the clients. Generally, fixing things in code that are meant to be fixed in data will not be fixing things in code. Let's say hacking things in code that are meant to be fixed in data will not be allowed in main branch. This is one of these cases. Not be allowed. Let's say hacking things in code that are meant to be fixed in data will not be allowed. I mean, do I really need to say this? Data need to be fixed. Data issues, data setups need to be fixed in our data branch, which is here. The list box length is set here. I disagree with overriding any settings by code arbitrarily. Any settings, well, arbitrarily is not the right word. I disagree with overriding any settings by code. Any settings need to mean something. Length 100 says that the max length is 100. This should not be violated by code. Options to change list length. Increase length number in WND file, for example, list box length 1000. Set length number in WND file to 0 and then allow the code to allocate its own limit. I tested setting length to 0 and that works. Setting it to -1 will crash the client. Yeah, so I really disagree with this approach, and I hope that I get some backing here from some people on this matter. I think hacking the code, I'm strongly opposed to this. Hacking the code to bend the data in ways that fits like some design is not the way to do it. The core design is meant to be driven by data and not by code. Code like is supposed to give the building blocks, right, and allow to customize it, and then in data you customize it. So, and if the length of the list box is set to 100 in data, then it's supposed to be 100 max. There's no other way that is reasonable to assume that it should not be the case. If the setup is 100, that's a law, and not any tricks like, oh, we ignore this value here in this case, but we don't ignore it in this other case, and here we override it to this value, and they are there. And basically what this does, like if you think this further, you start just violating all the various numbers for various purposes. What this means is that you cannot really trust the setup in data anymore. It's just arbitrary, right? So some values mean something and some other values don't mean something, right? And then you have this mess, like you look at this and then, okay, this line actually does nothing because code takes charge of this. This one does something, this does nothing, right? And so then you need to have like really... you really need to be knowledgeable about like what actually takes effect and what does not. And then the next question is, what does it matter to supply this then? Like, okay, we could just remove it entirely then, right? But if someone puts it and then he wants to say, okay, I want just 500 max elements, he cannot do this anymore because code overrides it anyway. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. I really disagree with this approach. I think it's slippery, dangerous route, because you can do this with any kind of things that you want to fix, and you just overwrite the behavior in code, and this is how you go from modability to a static game, which cannot be properly maintained and modified in different ways. Now, in this case, it's questionable how useful it is to have like a really short replay list, but that's the way how the game is set up, 100 length, and we should respect that, even if it's not as useful. But maybe there is some use, like maybe a user thinks that for him long replay list is too slow to open. He just wants 100. It's fast, easy, right? Well, the other workaround would be he just cleans up his replay folder, right? Yeah, I don't know. I think it's better to say, okay, if we set the length to 0, then we use new behavior where the length is automatically adjusted. Otherwise, length can also be just set relatively large to 1000 or so. Yeah, I would say implement this in a way that when you set it to 0, then the list box will be allocated with a length that matches the number of replays in the replay folder. Yeah, I think that's the best approach. Otherwise, the length here is a law, right? So if you set it to 1, you can only see 1 replay. Yeah, I think that's the way it should be. Yeah. I said setting links to 0, and that works. And we'll not show any replays in read. Yeah. Yeah. This cannot be fixed in data simply because the list length is only known at runtime. It seems to me that this is simply a bug. It's not a bug impacting both users and developers. It can only be fixed in code. And yes, ideally one day we drop the initial length of 100 from the data and just set it in code. But that is just some bonus cleanup, very insignificant in this relevant optimization that we can do on top of this change one day if we really want to. For now, this change fixes a bug. It's not a bug. It's not a bug. It's the way the game is set up with a limit of 100. It's not a bug. It's not a bug. It's a design. It's a design. And this is also what I meant with here earlier. I said the following. I said this is not the right time to merge small fixes when we are still building up the foundation. Not focusing on this will make it easier for us to focus on making the right decision for how to fix things. So, well, let me read that again. So right now we need to concentrate on other things, right? And so the problem is, if we focus on this thing right now, on minor issues like this right now, it takes away the focus from the more important things that we need to tackle. Like this is something I would have liked to avoid, like working on such minor fixes. Like this is a super minor thing. Absolutely super minor. It should not be tackled at this point. But it is, and it causes these big discussions on how to design this properly and how to implement this properly. but it's not something that we should focus on, right? And you can see, like, okay, it causes a big discussion, but it's nothing that is of a pressing concern. Not at all, because it can already be addressed with data by just increasing the list box size. Like, no one is asking for this thing. No one. It's something that can be tackled once all the big crashes and big blocker bugs are fixed and the foundation is built up. Like, this is not an important thing to tackle right now. And I really hope that we can push these kind of changes further away. Yeah. And the game is data driven. When we need to respect the data setups, we cannot just go ahead and override what the data is set up to do. If a mod wants to set a replay limit of 100, then that's what it should be. It's simple as that. It should be, there should be this replay limit. Now we could say that maybe maybe there's a world where you could override this, but then this needs to be clear in some way. The problem is, if we override now the list box behavior in code, we take away the customizability, right? It's gone. And that value in the WND file doesn't mean anything anymore. And as I said, if we think this further, you can do these kinds of hacks on anything. You can override any behavior here that we set in here, right? Use light map. You can just hard code it to no everywhere, right? But that's not the way to do it. It's not the way. I'm a bit, it's a bit worrying to me that there is this kind of notion that that this is okay, because it's really not okay. I don't think so. For debug, I would say, for debugging, I would be perfectly fine with saying, okay, if debug is enabled, like what one could do here is, wherever the list is being set to some lengths, you could say, okay, if debug internal or debug, if internal or debug, then we override the list length to what we want in code, right? We ignore the data setup, right? For testing, for developers. That is perfectly fine, but retail should not do that. The retail should respect the ini setups, 100%. Yeah. So let me actually add one more. Let me add one more options. Allocate. Let code allocate the list length. Allocate the list length, but let code allocate the list length and override any length, but put that behind debug or internal. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. So I have a pretty clear vision of how this should be implemented. So if the WND length is set to 0, then it has a special meaning and means the code will allocate the length. And then we say if debug or internal, then we say we allocate our own list length anyway for testing. We just override the ini setup. The advantage of this is that we don't disrespect the length value in the ini file. Yeah. The developer still has all his replays listed in a huge list length. And yeah, I think that is the best design for this, no doubt. Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I'm pretty sure that we will have more cases of these coming up when things are interacting with any setups, that we need to find designs that fit well with a design that someone can put into the ini files, and that we cannot just override behavior, because that will reduce configurability, and then we will break mods, and we just make the game a worse experience for modders who mod on ini files and WND files and whatever other files, because more things will be moved into code, and only coders will be able to maintain this mess. Yeah, and it's a wrong approach. It's a wrong approach. I really hope that there will be a shift in how people see this. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. What's the next change? Right, we wanted to test this guy here. Then let me install. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Okay, so multi-load, load replay. Okay, so load replay. Okay. So if we the question, so I guess we need to play a skill mesh or something that writes a replay. Let's see. Oof. 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 Okay, so we got this. We have a replay being written out, right? Let's exit. And it's not hitting this. Stop recording. Stop recording. Ah, it's multiplayer. Aha. Okay, let's go to network. Fake IP1. Okay, so then we start a multiplayer here against the medium army. All right. Put some doses here. Okay, I think that's enough. Exit game. And that didn't hit anything. Let me catch. Why are there try catches? What the hell? What? Update. Kill. Okay, we have another here. Stop recording. Okay. Let me put this here. Ah, was desync? Was desync? Okay, interesting. Okay, let's create a new. Try catch. Jesus. Okay. Exit game. Aha. Network if desync. Okay. Then let's remove this condition here. Yeah. No. Okay. Rocky Rampage. Version 104.601. Debug. Debug. Rampage map. Ah, hold on. Skirmish is not the right network, please. Let's put a guy here. Okay, exit game. There we go, finally. Okay, so fname will be dot. Okay, so that's worked here, isn't it? Base there. Okay. Oof. Fake IP Rocky Rampage.map 0. Jesus Christ. Saving replay to that. So old name is what? Replace fake IP. Does it mean it will copy it to the game directory, or? I have the impression that it will copy it in here. Let me see. So let's see. It did. What? That's outrageous. And that is outrageous, yeah. Okay. Wow. That worked, yeah. Okay. Okay. Huh. Okay. And then what? Then it will remove, oh boy, txt, okay. Then it will open this debug file name here. Oh boy, debug file name here, fp, okay. Get the file size, okay. Max debug size. Huh? Save all stats. Manual copy. That's some wild code here. Oh, Jesus Christ. What is this? Okay, it reads it in chunks. Okay, it's not that bad. Okay. I thought it would read line by line. Okay. Okay. And so it should have created this, and it's a copy of one of these here. This one or so. Oh, it has capped it. Wow. So it only copies up to 65 kilobytes for some reason. That's so weird. Why? Did they not have enough storage back in the day? Oh, that's funny. Okay. Okay, but it works. It writes it in here. Okay. Okay, I understand now. Okay. Fine. Then let me stop debugging here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That means we will we need to Okay, so one of the big differences I see here, this debug file name, it's not 100% taking it from the same location as it does in debug.cpp, because here it certainly puts it right next to the executable. Right? So it's different. It's different. And so if we unify this, we can fix this discrepancy. Not that it matters much, but it is a discrepancy. Yeah. Okay, so here, I mean this one here, right? So here it certainly puts the debug file next to the executable, and here in the other code it does not. It puts it at workdir. So if the workdir is different from the executable directory, then the logic in recorder will fail. Yeah. And plus if there was an app prefix. But I think the game doesn't have an app prefix, so that works. Yeah, here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Then let me think. We need to create a new function. I wonder if you should store this name. Yeah, so the question is, should we store these log names or not? The debug flags, where are these stored? They're in here. So maybe we can have like the log file and the previous log file. Yeah. So actually I do wonder why do they never use std string anywhere? Or do they do? They do at some places. Okay. So what I think we should do is static std string. We do the debug logging. How about we put it here? Say the log file name. Yeah. And then the log file name previous. Yeah. Okay. And then we do debug logging. Okay, and then here we build these strings. Yeah. Then here we do so we keep this guy here, that's fine. Then we do the log file name. Yeah. The log file name we do. Let's first do the previous one. Log file previous dot assign the above. Then we do append prefix. Then How about we do reserve max path. No. Append. And then that's it. Mm-hmm. So assign append. Okay. Did we append everything? Yeah. Okay, and then here we do the log file name like this. Yeah. Reserve debug append, and we append this guy. Okay, and then we can remove all these guys, yeah. Then we do remove .cstr. There we go. Pref.cstr. .cstr. And corebuff cstr. There we go. Okay. And then we create a function. Get flags. Okay. We do a debug. We do a const char. Debug get log file name, and then get file name previous. Yeah. Okay. Then we go down here and allow debug utils. Debug logging. Aha. Hold on. Debug log. There we go. Okay, so we put it here. Debug get log file name. There we go. Then we put it here below this guy. There we go. Debug log. Oops. Okay. And then here we say return the log file name cstr, and here we return the previous one. There we go. Okay, and then we should be able, in the recorder, we should be able to remove all this here. And we can remove this and this. What is this here? Ah, okay. And then we can do Then we can do let me see. You can do debug log file name const char log file name equals debug get log file name. There we go. And then we say if not, then return. Maybe we can make it a bit easier to understand. If log file name equals 0, yeah, 0, and then here we pass this guy here. There we go. There. And that shall work. Then we remove this here and this. Yeah, I think that's better. Then let's see if that works. Remove this here. What I need to change with this for it to take the exe file from the debug folder. I'm not sure. Okay, that has succeeded. Well done. Let's run this. Yeah. Okay. Solo play. No. Multiplayer. Network. There we go. Let's put an AI here. Okay, got some asserts here. Good. So build a power plant and rage quit. Good. So let's see. Okay, so here we have the replay folder name. Here we have this, yeah. Okay, and now log file name should be, oof, it's empty. Oof. Oof. Okay, well, that is unexpected. Well. Let me go to here. Let me go to here. Let me put a breakpoint here. Something we did wrong, no? That looks good. That looks proper. Reserve. Yeah. Why is it empty? Yeah, that's confusing. Network. The log file name. Why is this empty? Huh? I'm confused. Why is this empty? Huh? It previously just set these up. Why are these empty now? What is this? What am I missing? I don't get it. Is anything clearing this for some reason? Huh? Nothing is clearing this. There's a rename, there's a fopen. Everything is fine. I'm shocked right now. I don't understand. It's probably something really stupid, but I don't get it. Why are these strings empty? Huh. Let me run an experiment here with how about we use this here? We use char buffer there instead of std string. We use this there, and then we use this stuff here. I'm shocked. I don't understand what is going on right now. So we take this guy, and then we do previous. There we go. That. Then we remove all these guys here. There we go. Okay. So now it's not put into a std string, but it's put into static buffer. Yeah. Oh, hold on. We still need to remove this as well. There we go. I'm shocked. I wonder if it's related somehow to being part of the dynamic initializer. So it's before the main runs. I wonder if there's like something special about it, that it cannot initialize static. Yeah, maybe the problem is that. Yeah, maybe the problem is that it cannot. We cannot use std string yet because it's not statically initialized at that point, right? That could be. Yeah. So that it will later call the constructor, and the constructor will deallocate whatever was in there. Maybe. That's the only explanation. I find this very interesting. Yeah, okay, but this should work then, right? Yeah, this will probably work. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it must be something like this. That it later, the static std string will call its constructor after we ran through this code here, this one, and then it gets freed again. That's the only explanation I have. Yeah, something like that. I never seen this before though, so it's not something that you run in every day because it's unusual to run code before main. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Ah, there we go. Okay, this works. Cool. All right. Okay. Then this will remove those chars, concat, txt. And so what this should do now is put another here. So it has copied this guy now, and then now we should have another txt file created down there, right? Let's see. Not yet. There we go. There we go. Okay, that works. Fantastic. 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 Good. Good. Oof. 133 memory leaks. Oh boy. Good. Then let me clean up that change. Debug here. All right. Okay, I'll remove this here. Maybe you can add a note here. No, I think it's fine. Maybe, well, we can add a note here. Must not use so I guess add info must not use AI types, must not use static AI types because these will be when set in debug init because that can be called way before the because that can be called during static initialization before main function is called. Must not use static types when set in debug init because debug init can be called during static initialization before the main function is called. Static module init initialization. Okay, that looks good to me. Then I don't know what happened here. Okay, looks good. Looks good. This one we need to revert. This one we take, yeah. This one we revert. And this one we take. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, then are there any other places where debug file name is defined? Luckily not. Okay, then fix. Well, let's say tie couple log file couple use of log file couple use of log file in recorder class, couple use of log file and recorder class with the actual log file. Okay, so this is yeah, I think that's good enough. Good. We need to create a new branch. Refactor recorder class log. Okay. Couple use of log file and recorder class with the actual log file. Good. Then we push this. Then we go here. So currently it's only 0 hour to do. Replicate in generals. So it's a refactor, but it's also a fix, right? Minor, and it's debug. This change couples the use of the log file in the recorder class with the actual log file from debug. It's the actual use of the debug log file in the recorder class with the actual debug log file. This removes code duplication, but also fixes minor discrepancies. Of how the log file is used in recorder class. one, recorder class does not, recorder class originally did not relied on the log file sitting in the work directory, not next in the work directory. 2, recorder class originally did not consider the app prefix string for the log file name. Both of these were no tangible issues, but are not clean either. With this change, both these things are no longer a problem. Are no longer a concern. Okay, to do replicate in generals. Log file being located in the work directory. Origin did not consider the app prefix for the log file name. No practical issues, but are not clear. Debug, fix, minor, refactor. Okay, this is for Helmut to review. Okay, so good observation. I fixed this in a new change. I have improved this in new change. Tested and worked. Why use std string when it isn't used anywhere else in the code base? Is that true? Let me see. SD string. Let me see. It is used. It is used. It's not used much, but it is used. Can we see how many? Matching line 231. Let me search this in here. No. Projects. Code. Oops. SCD string. So it is used, I guess here. So it is used here. It is used. Not much, but it is used. www download, it's used. Yeah. I think it's fine to use SC string. Can we copy this? Search for SCD string reveals 815 matches across all tools, or across both games and all tools. If you want me to use, if you want me to all tools, we either use SCD string or C API here. We cannot use ASCII string because the pools are not yet allocated at this time. Because memory pools are not yet allocated at this time. And therefore it cannot be used. Cannot use at this time because the memory pools are not yet allocated. Do you want me to use C API for this? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think this is good to go. Yeah. Good. Then wait for review. Then we replicate it on generals. And then we go back to this change here, update it with the new changes to this log file thingy, update it, and also replicate it to generals once we have figured out what to do here with the std string. To me, using std string here is the right course of action. We cannot use ASCII string. The alternative would be to use C API, but I don't advocate for using C API everywhere if we can use std string. Std string is a standard way of doing it, unless it's like a performance concern, unless we want to avoid allocations, but that would be a very rare circumstance. I think for the most part here, this std string allocation is, I think, perfectly fine. Maybe. I mean, it worked. Let's say like this, it worked. But we can use C API, but I don't see why that would be necessary here. Yeah, let me see his answer. If he wants me to use C API, I will change it. I don't think it's necessary, but we can do that, I guess. Yeah. Good. Then let me see this change here. So basically it just removed, for fingerprinting, we need to ensure the presence of these files. Interestingly, here, if not internal and not debug. Interesting. I'm quitting. What is this? Create the default ini file. If we turn I'm quitting to false here, then we throw away any request to quit that took place during loading. So by pressing cancel, blah, what? Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm quitting true. I'm quitting true. Yeah, looks good to me. It checks if there's a music.big file. Huh. Interesting. Compare no case. Good. Then, yeah, I think that looks fine. Looks good. Remove fingerprint. How about we call it remove secure sec fingerprint. for fingerprinting. Remove fingerprint file present. How about we call it remove SEC file presence checks. Let's say remove obsolete SEC file presence checks. Okay. Remove obsolete SEC file presence checks. Yeah. This change removes code that search for SEC files and force the game to exit if they were missing misplaced. I think this is also described here, right? Okay. Looks good. All right. Good. What's the time? 2 hours 36. Yeah, I think we can take a break here. Then I wish you a great day or night. Until next time. Goodbye.